All right. So good morning, everybody. Good to be able to share meditation and spiritual practice here on Chol HaMoed Sukkot. Chol HaMoed Sukkot is, a lot of us are aware that the holiday of Sukkot lasts for 7 days. And the first 2 days are holidays, that there's no work or anything else. But the intermediate days, which we're in right now, is called Chol HaMoed. Moed means holiday, but it also means appointed meeting place. So every holiday, Jewish holiday, is called a moed, an appointment with God, basically, a special appointment with God. And then chol means every day. So it's this kind of mixture of we do our everyday work, all of it, but we also have this aspect of this appointment with God, this deeper kind of meeting space. So examples of that is for those of us who wrap tefillin, the phylacteries, we don't, one of custom is to not wrap it on this month, this week, because it's got its own holiness. So we're here in the middle of Sukkot. And really what I wanted to share a little bit about is how do we continue to bring our meditative awareness into our everyday life. And because Sukkot is really the example of that. You know, the symbol of the sukkah, of being that we can dwell in and we can actually sit in, is really a reminder that the entire world is melo kol haaretz kevodo. The whole world is filled with God's glory. The whole world is filled with infinite depth. That we are perpetually in a divine sukkah all the time. The holiday just gives us this imagery and this focus and this practice to actually sit in these booths or huts. But as Rabbi Eliezer teaches in the Talmud, the sukkah is not just a booth or a hut, but it is the clouds of glory. It is the awareness of divine presence. And one of the things that we know about the cycle of Shabbat is that Shabbat, the day of holiness once a week, is the day of being, the day of fully receiving and completely being present with the creation, with the divine presence. And then every day, the 6 days of the week, as we move into activity, as we move into doing mode, it is natural that we get farther and farther away from that place of awareness of divine presence. Okay, so it's just, I think we can feel this and experience this practically. It doesn't, that really when we stop, like we're doing this morning, and meditate, it's very easy to be in that Shabbat space. It's very easy. And I don't mean the easy like that, you know, we still have our mishigas of our minds and all of that, but it's easier not to get caught in so many of the details of life. The only thing, and I mean that with quotes, the only thing we have to navigate is the busyness of our minds that's going on. But really, as far as what's happening, the fact that we can sit in one place allows us the opportunity to turn inward. And then as we get off of our chair and start moving about in our day and moving into activity, it is natural that we will go farther away from that space of divine awareness. And it's really simply because in order for us to do, we have to identify with the external dimension of reality. Okay, so Kabbalah teaches that all parts of reality is made up of or and klipa, light and shells, internal and external, everything. You, me, the creation around here has an outer shell, which is the physicality of it, the way that it presents itself to us, and it has an inner essence, divine light, energy, life-giving expression. In order for us to manipulate and act in the world, it is just natural that we have to identify with the external dimension of reality, of life, of the shell of life. In order for me to go down and make myself coffee and do all of that, I have to be tapped into the functionality of my machines and the stuff that I'm doing and all of that. I'm not thinking about the inner essence of the coffee and the design of the consciousness that was brought into creating the coffee machine and all of that. I'm just making some coffee, right? So immediately by doing, I start to identify with the external and I get farther away from that space of Shabbat, right? So the question is, how, as that is the natural cycle of things, I start identifying with the external. How do I continue to come back and be able to touch into the internal dimension of life, the godly presence, be aware of that sense of presence more and more and more throughout my day? How do I do that? And the word that I want us to come down to that we touched on Rosh Hashanah, right? Rosh Hashanah is called Yom HaZikaron, the day of remembering. And it's really about remembering God, remembering God. It's almost as if the way that Rabbi Moshe of Sassov, a 19th century Hasidic master, he said that it's almost like a rich person that has a precious gem in his pocket, that all his wealth is concentrated into that precious gem. It's in his pocket. And as he goes about and does his business and does his day, he's always aware of that precious gem that's in his pocket, no matter whether he's talking or eating or whatever, because there's really this sense, I don't want to lose this. I don't want to lose this, because if I lose this, I lose everything. I lose all my wealth. I lose it. So, and some of us can think about that, maybe have a sense of that, of some time when we've been having to transport something really valuable. I remember one time when was years and years ago, when I was going to sell some gold, and I was taking the gold to the place to sell the gold, and there was just this awareness, I've got this gold right here, and it's kind of moving by. It's never far from the awareness. So what is that like? What would that be like to begin to have a sense that our most valuable possession is this awareness of God, is the awareness of the inside. And as we move through our life, as we're moving through, we're constantly, even though we have to kind of go away and get involved in the doing and deal with life, there's, in the back of us, there's just this little sense, it's right here. It's right here in the back. It's right here. And any opportunity I get, I'm going to reach into my pocket. I'm going to finger that gem. I'm going to hold it. Every opportunity I get, I'm going to take a breath, look around me, see the beauty of what's happening. When somebody's talking to me, I'm, in that moment, I'm hearing what they're saying. But at some point, I just kind of open to their spirit, their soul, their unique expression, their aliveness. And I can enjoy that. I can enjoy that even deeper than what they're saying in the moment. I can just enjoy who they are. That it's not far from me to turn my attention to that place. The Sufis, which is the mystical sect of Islam, which is, by the way, incredibly deep influence on Kabbalah, especially through the 9th and 12th centuries. That was actually my rabbinic thesis, was the influence of Sufism on early Jewish meditative practice. But they have a concept called zikr, and it comes from the same root as zachor, remember. And it's really that practice of remembering God. Also, just another shameless plug on our spiritual pilgrimage to Israel trip. We are going to be spending time with with real Sufis who live this and practice this, both outside of Tel Aviv and up in the north. And we'll get to do some Sufi dancing and experience those whirling dervishes and really hear about how they, in a very real way, try to keep this awareness of God into their lives. So this is really what we're invited to consider. And so in our meditation practice, the more that we meditate, the more that we put our awareness on this, this awareness, this presence, this inner that we're talking about, God, the more we put our awareness there, the more it's accessible within the doing of our day, the more that it's right sort of in the back of things, and the more we can access it. So that's enough really for this morning on this, but what I will say is we'll come back to this theme again and again. There are interesting techniques that one can do to try to keep this awareness alive in our life. And right now, just holding the technique, if you will, that I'm sharing is really just the idea of holding that gem, keeping that in our pocket. So I want to invite you to get in a comfortable space to go inside, some place that you can sit for a period of time. We'll start off with a melody, which I invite you in your own homes to sing. There's an energy in the melody, a spirituality in the melody from where it was created, that just the vibration, the voice, the melody can begin to open up certain parts in our mind and heart, certain neural pathways, to be able to tap deeper into this moment. And the nine and the nine 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 and the nine and the nine 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 and the nine and the nine 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 and the nine 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 and the nine and the nine 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 and the nine and the nine 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 and the nine and the nine 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 and the nine nine nine. Yai dai dai. Yada dai 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 dai. Yada dai 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 dai. Yada dai 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 dai. Yana nai 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 nai. Yana nai na na nai 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 nai. Yana nai na na nai 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 nai. Yana nai na na nai 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 nai. Yana nai nai nai. Yana nai na na nai 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 nai. Yana nai na na nai 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 nai. Yana nai na na nai 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 nai. Yana nai nai nai. Yai dai dai. Yada dai 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 dai. Yada dai 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 dai. Yada dai 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 dai. Yada dai 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 dai. Yana nai 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 nai. Yana nai 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 nai. Yai nai. Yana nai 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 nai. Yana nai 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 nai. So just bring your awareness to your body in space, noticing the shape of your body from the top of your head to the tips of your toes. Notice the pressure of your bottom on the chair or the cushion. Notice the contact of the bottom of your feet on the floor. Be aware of the distance between the bottom of your spine and the top of your head, the space between your ears, your arms as they hang out of your shoulders and the resting place of your hands. See if you can be aware of all of the sensation and the shape of your body at once. And allow your attention to also include the movement of breath at the same time that you're aware of your body in space. Noticing the sensation of the air entering your nostrils or your mouth, the way the body expands to make room for the inhale, and then following the air out and noticing the contraction of the body on the exhale. This is where every meditation starts. An awareness of what is right here. And we start with bringing our awareness to how we interface with the world, which is our bodies. All of the information that we take in through our senses. Allowing ourselves to be present with as much of that information that is we're experiencing on the physical level in this moment as we can. Letting the heart and the center of our awareness be that movement of breath. Again, not changing the breath or making it stronger or weaker, just being aware of it, just noticing its movement and noticing our body's response to it, in and out. And as we pay attention to all of the sensory experiences of this moment of breath and body, of air on our face, of sounds as they hit our eardrum, of breath, of expansion, of contraction. Let yourself be aware of the very awareness and presence that you bring to this moment. There is a decision that each one of us is making, moment by moment, to pay attention to what is here. Notice who is paying attention. Notice the very act, the very choice of being present here. If you'd like, you can imagine for a moment that a good friend or loved one is listening to you intently. And as you imagine them listening to you, you feel, you remember their sense of presence with you, their sense of attention. Let yourself notice that same sense of presence and attention that you are bringing to this moment. So there's the objects of awareness, the breath, the body, the expansion and contraction. And then there is presence and awareness itself, that intangible but very real sense of being here. That this very being, this very awareness that we bring to this moment is the same awareness and presence of the Holy One. This is the divine presence. It's as close to us as our own breath, even closer. Divine presence is not a concept. It is the very real living presence that we experience here and now through our own awareness. We use the word my awareness, my presence, and that word is a thought conception that draws a boundary around that presence and says that it is located in me and it's mine. But our tradition teaches us that that is an illusion, and that the reality is that the presence that we participate in, that we bring to every moment of our day and our life, is the divine presence, is the one, is the presence of compassion, is the spaciousness. And as you allow yourself to sense your own presence and awareness that you bring to this moment, that you bring to the objects of your awareness, let yourself remember. Let yourself open to the reality that this presence goes way beyond that line that we draw around ourselves that we call mine and me. That there is no end to this presence. There is no bottom depth to this presence. It is infinite. And it's right here. I'm going to be quiet for a period of time to allow us to be in this moment and to continue to over and over again let our attention be drawn towards itself. Let our awareness be sensing and present with itself. And as we are sensing our own presence, we are aware that it is not ours, that it is the echad, the one that is uniting us all, that is present in us all. That this is remembering. Yananai, nananai, nai, nai, nai. Yananai, nananai, nai, nai, nai. Yananai, nananai, nai, nai, nai. Yananai, nai, nai. Yananai, nananai, nai, nai, nai. Yananai, nananai, nai, nai, nai. Yananai, nananai, nai, nai, nai. Yananai, nai, nai. Yai, dai, dai. Yananai, nai, 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 nai. Yai, dai. Yananai, nai, 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 nai. Yananai, nai, 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 nai. Yananai, nai, 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 nai. Yananai, nananai, nai, nai, nai. Yananai, nananai, nai, nai, nai. Yananai, nananai, nai, nai, nai. Yananai, nai, nai. Yananai, nananai, nai, nai, nai. Yananai, yananai, nai, nai, nai. Yananai, nananai, nai, nai, nai. Yananai, nai, nai. Yai, dai, dai. Yananai, nai, 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 nai. Yananai, nai, 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 nai. Yananai, nai, 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 nai. Yananai, nai, 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 nai. So we'll open up for questions, comments, sharing. Want to remind people that even though we are recording and streaming, all that is being shown right now is my video, the spotlight video. So if you choose to share or ask a question, it will just be your voice that's on the recording or the streaming. So if that's okay with you, feel free to step forward. And even though we can see each other from within the Zoom call, it won't be seen from the outside. Anybody like to share any thoughts either about the meditation practice itself, this idea of trying to continue to remember throughout our day, this sense of presence, awareness, or anything else you may want to share?
Hi, it's Maury.
Hi, Maury.
This is kind of silly. You know, I was thinking about that imagery you gave us and how in popular culture and legends, the stone or the jewel, you know, Superman and just all of those. But in those legends, the stone or the jewel has the actual power. It's actual, the magic is there.
Yes.
But it's a wonderful image, I think, you know, to carry with us because, you know, we, you know, it's us that holds the, you know, the power and the jewel. But
I agree with
kind of silly.
I agree with you. I think having something, you know, something tangible to have as an image that's right there allows us to reflect on what's more intangible, and can we be able to, and I think that's what happens with meditation practice is the more that we place our attention on this very presence itself, this very presence which is so intangible, it's almost like it's behind our eyelids, you know, in a sense, that we were able to begin to recognize it more in our life, the way that we could easily recognize a jewel. What would it be like if this very intangible sense of presence became a little bit more tangible? And I think that's what we're aiming towards. Anybody else? This, I think, this kind of quality of meditative practice, it's more, it's a practice that within Judaism comes more from the Baal Shem Tov and the very early Hasidic masters, this awareness of recognizing divine presence within awareness itself. It's also found in the East in Advaita Vedanta, the teachings of Ramana Maharshi, which is kind of this radical non-dualism. And until you begin to recognize that sense of presence and awareness in your own being, it can be very difficult for people. It's much easier to place our awareness to focus on the objects of our awareness, as in, traditional mindfulness practice, where we are paying attention to the objects of our awareness, noticing, trying to stay present and aware through being aware of body sensation, breath, thoughts, even as they come in and out. But to reflect on awareness itself, how is that for people? Is that something? Can you get a glimpse at all of what our intention is there, or is it more elusive and harder to touch on? Sherry, please unmute, and love to hear you. There we go.
Is that the rationale, or part of the rationale behind 100 blessings every day?
You mean to be aware of awareness itself?
Yeah.
I absolutely.
Yeah.
I don't know that when the rabbis in the first. I'm going to give you a historical answer and a spiritual answer. From a historic answer,
Okay.
I don't think that the rabbis. I don't know if the rabbis in the 1st and 2nd century conceived of God in so much of that kind of radical non-dual way. Most of their language is very dualistic, and not to say that there weren't mystics among them, for sure, who were more kind of living in that, but the common parlance and language of talking about God was more of kind of God as outside ourselves, in that way that we're kind of used to thinking of it. So I think that in the sense of giving 100 blessings a day, it absolutely, so yes, the early intention was absolutely to continually remind ourselves of God. Yes. Okay, so we bless our food, we bless beautiful things we see, to constantly be bringing our attention to say that God is here. God is in this blessing.
Right.
So yes, I think that's what you're asking the question of. I think that now we can also take that attention and awareness to say, well, what is it that we're talking about when we say that God is present here? Because is God being present here in this moment an idea, right? Is it just kind of an idea of some amorphous kind of God thing that's out here? Or is it a recognition that God being here is our very own awareness itself, our very own sense of presence? When we are present with ourselves or with another person or with the moment in a way that gives space, that is an open heart, that is that presence of compassion. That is the God of compassion that we have been praying for too on the High Holy Days. The God of compassion is that very presence that we can open up to within ourselves, that we're giving. So I think that the mystical awareness of this whole idea when we're talking about God is to recognize that God presence as our own presence, that we're a microcosm of the.
Uh-oh, I'm losing you.
That's okay. We're a microcosm of the divine image. Eileen.
You talk about the rich man who had this jewel in his pocket. What if I take a little rock and put it in my pocket, and every time I put my hand in my pocket, I remember God. Yes. It brings me back. It's a physical thing, but I think that would be very helpful.
Absolutely, and you would be, by doing that, you would be participating in thousands of years of many different spiritual traditions that use that very same thing. Like, some of us are aware of the red thread in Kabbalah. Well, yes, there's the whole idea of the red thread as being it's keeping away the ayin hara, the evil eye, and all of that kind of. I'll just be out there about it, my own opinion, all that mumbo jumbo. But it also, there is an intention about it too, that it's a reminder. It's a reminder of God's presence being here, and every time we finger it, or notice it here, it's that reminder. So whether you're keeping something in your pocket, whether you're wearing something, there's that tradition of mala beads in Hindu or yogic kind of things, and which is a necklace or beads that you can finger as you're moving through, and each finger is you're saying a name of God as you're just going through. I think, Tamara, of your knitting, and thinking about how easy it could be as a practice even of knitting or something like that, that each kind of thread in is a reminder, God is here, or whatever you want to use, presence is here. Each of those kind of repetitive or mundane actions that we do can be transformed into reminders. For periods of time, I've done things of setting my watch to beep every hour. And every time it beeps, it's an awareness to stop what I'm doing and just take a moment and tap in, remember. It was great when I did a week-long retreat in my 20s at Tassajara Zen Center. They would have bells that would ring every 15 minutes. And so you'd be preparing food in the kitchen and the bell would ring, and it would be this awareness to be present with what you're doing, be aware, remember God. They didn't say remember God at that time, but those Zen Buddhists don't have a God thing going on. Any other questions, comments before we close? Okay, well,
Maury again.
Yes.
When I studied Eastern philosophy, the focus was on the concept of oneness, that we're, and I think that's what you're talking about, the awareness, to lose the ego, I guess is what they would say, to lose yourself and to be at one with the universe. I mean, it was always hard for me to wrap my mind around it, but I think, I understand, at least intellectually, where that's going.
Yes.
That all things somehow are, ultimately all things are one, and you can join, or the highest state, I guess, would be to have that experience of being at one, being one.
Yes, exactly. That is, and that's, a lot of us are exposed to that idea first through Eastern practices, but that is the heart. That is the heart of our Jewish tradition. That is the Shema. That is the central piece of prayer that you have to tap into morning and evening is Echad. Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad is one. Everything is it's unified field theory. Everything is that one expression and that one taste. Now the difference between the Eastern and the Jewish perspectives, I'm not going to make these are broad strokes, because obviously there's intricate pieces, is that this idea of losing the ego, or losing that complete sense of separateness to merge in that awareness of the one, where there is pieces of that in mystical Jewish practice. It's not the goal, and it's not the everyday. The everyday is, how do I sense the one in the multiplicity? That the multiplicity is not just illusion. On one level, it's illusion. On a deeper level, there's only one. But the multiplicity of life is just as sacred and not something to push aside, but instead to celebrate and to open to that one presence within the many. That is, you know, that is really the Jewish way. So thank you everybody for a beautiful Tuesday morning. I'm gonna stop the streaming and